It is my honor to introduce to you best-selling author Eric Blehm. Eric has a talent for delving deep into the essence of his characters and uncovering both heart and soul. In 1999, Eric became the first journalist to accompany an elite Army Ranger unit on a training mission, which set an important milestone for American war journalism. This experience led him to his New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller, The Only Thing Worth Dying For, and his latest book, Fearless. Fearless tells the remarkable story of Adam Brown, a true American hero, who through his bravery, deep faith in God, and family, helped him overcome dark personal obstacles to rise up and reach the top tier of the U.S. military, U.S. Navy SEAL Team 6. Having read Fearless, I can say that this is a heart-rending, tear-jerking in my case, and incredibly moving story. Adam's undaunted courage and determination was fueled by his deep love for faith and family. He always put others above himself, and his final act of humble valor led him to the ultimate sacrifice. Please welcome the author of this incredibly inspiring book, Eric Blehm.
This wasn't planned, but I have that green book right here. And I hear it's bringing about $500 on eBay. If you can get it signed, so Mr. Grisham, maybe after the show. I'm honored to be here. Reading and books have always been magic to me. My mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was 13. She died when I was 17. We spent a lot of time in hospitals, and I always had a book with me. And it would take me away, and it was books that ultimately inspired me to want to write and tell stories. And maybe if I got lucky, I'd have a story that would really inspire people at some point. And that book is behind me right now. The most recent, it's Fearless. And Mr. President, Ms. Bush, if you ever happen to be at Air Force One again and you'd like to tuck this under your arm, that would be no complaints here. Adam Brown. He is, without a doubt, an American hero, and he is a tender warrior. He's a gentleman. The stories I heard by meeting his friends who wanted his story told, they told me he's the guy that they'd like to be as a father, as a dad. One of his teammates told me Adam Brown would go play with his kids at the park. He wouldn't take his kids to the park to play. They're the difference. And that's something that I took away from this book. People always ask, what is your takeaway with this book? Or with any story that you write, what is your takeaway? And in this case, Adam Brown is the type of individual that you meet via his stories, and you realize that you can rise above anything, your darkest hour. I'm going to read a little part, and this is a first sentence. This is the first sentence that I actually wrote when I sat down to write this story. And I think all the authors here can attest that that first sentence that you write when you sit down to tell a story never becomes the first sentence or words in your book. But in this case, it did, and it held true through the entire research process. When Adam Brown woke up on March 17th, 2010, he didn't know he would die that night in the Hindu Kush Mountains of Afghanistan, but he was ready. 7,000 miles away in a suburb of Virginia Beach, his 10-year-old son Nathan was worried about him. From the moment he'd opened his eyes that morning, he felt something was going to happen to his daddy, but he kept it to himself, rolled out of bed, and got ready for school. It was St. Patrick's Day, and he made sure to wear something green so he wouldn't get pinched. On a previous deployment, Adam had written in his journal to both Nathan and Savannah, Nathan's 7-year-old sister, a letter they weren't meant to see unless the worst happened. I'm not afraid of anything that might happen to me on this earth because I know, no matter what, nothing can take my spirit from me. How much it pains me, though, to think about not watching my boy excel in life or giving my little baby girl away in marriage. Buddy, I'll be there. You'll feel me there when you steal your first base, smash someone on the football field, make all A's. I'll be there for all of your achievements, but much more, buddy. I'll be there for your every failure. Remember, I know tears, I know pain and disappointment, and I will be there for you with every drop. You cannot disappoint me. I understand. And Adam Brown did understand what it meant to disappoint, to feel the shame he'd experienced on a hot, humid August afternoon years earlier when his parents had him arrested. It's time for you to face what you've done, his father had told him in 1996, just before Adam was handcuffed and escorted to the back seat of the Garland County Sheriff's cruiser. When the deputy slammed the door shut, Adam watched his mother's legs buckle, and she collapsed. His dad caught her and held her tightly against him. She began to cry, and Adam knew he'd broken his mother's heart. That vision of his mother sobbing into his father's chest would haunt him for the rest of his life, but it also sparked the journey that defined who he would become. Adam Brown grew up as a kid that every one of his buddies' parents wanted him to play with them. He was a kid who would ask the wallflowers to dance. He would help the underdogs in school. There was a little boy named Richie who was a boy with Down syndrome, was kind of getting picked on by some big kids one day when he was just 13 years old. And Adam, being a little guy, walked up to him and said, "Why don't you pick on someone your own size if you think you're big enough?" And he was looking up at him. Adam liked to play football. He loved football. He wanted more than anything to be on the Lake Hamilton Wolves, his local high school team. It was the Friday Night Lights. It was his dream. His big brother played football. He tried out. He was a little guy. On his JV year, the coaches, they let the JV and the varsity practice together on the same field, and at the end they'd come together, and they did this one drill that most of the little guys would kind of scurry around to the back of the crowd because they didn't want their number called. They called it Blood Alley. They would line him up, and he'd face off against various players, and he, all summer long, before school started, he was raising his hand, "Coach, pick me, pitch me." Linebackers, linemen, didn't matter, and Adam was a little skinny guy. Finally, they let him do it. Everybody lined up to watch him, and he got rolled up. He was picking the turf out of the face mask. He got back up, slapped his helmet, and said, let's go again. You want some more of me? He got again in a three-point stance, got rolled up again, and then again. Finally, the coaches had him pull back, and he said, "All right, that's good." And when he left the field that day, he went up to the lineman that he went up against, this really big guy, and he said, "Thanks for not going easy on me." And I talked to the coach here just a couple of years ago researching the book, and he said, Adam Brown taught our team more about character in those few minutes than we did the entire season. That was Adam Brown. Well, imagine having that perfect son who everybody loved and doted over and thought he was the greatest guy in the world, tried crack cocaine one night when he was in college. Now, crack cocaine, for those of you not familiar with this horrible drug, will change the chemistry in your brain so you will crave it for the rest of your life. It kills most people. It nearly killed Adam. But a woman came into his life. Her name was Kelly Tippy, his girlfriend. And she didn't know right off the bat that he was a crack addict, but she found out soon enough. And she would chase him down in crack houses and pull him out of there, and after he'd be on a bender and just out of his mind, and say, "Adam Brown, you are better than this. This is a drug talking. This is a drug. This is not you. You are better than this." Ultimately, she gave him an ultimatum, and that was to make a plan or she's out of here. Even though, in her heart, she did not want to leave this man. So Adam Brown, one day, walked to a recruiter's office in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and decided to give the Navy a go, even though he thought in himself, "There's no way they'll take me." When he went in, there was two pictures on the wall. One was a picture of then President Bill Clinton, and the other was a highly decorated Navy Commodore, the highest ranking recruiter in that half of the country. And they started this cursory questions when he walked up. The recruiter looked at him and he said, "Okay, son, you want to join the Navy? Have you ever been to jail?" At that point in his life, Adam said, "Yes, sir." "Any felony counts against you?" He said, "Yes, sir, 11. "Have you had any problems with drugs?" He said, "Yes, sir." "What kind?" He said, "Most." He said, "Do you still have drugs in your system right now, son?" And he said, "Well, sir, how long does crack cocaine last in your system?" He leaned in and he looked at him and he said, "Are you joking, boy? Do you really think you can join the Navy?" And he said, "Well, yes, sir, that's behind me now. I'm changing that today. I'm going to make something of myself. And if you could you call that guy on the picture and see if he could vouch for me?" And he looked over there and he said, you know Commodore Bushman?" And he said, "I do. He knew me as a boy." Well, he called. The recruiter said, "Why don't you step outside?" And he called. And this recruiter called Commodore Bushman, who actually had known Adam as a boy in Hot Springs. He asked me, he said, Commodore Bushman, he said, "Well, I have a young prospective recruit here in the office, and his name's Adam Brown. He has got a rap sheet a mile long. He is not a good candidate, sir. But he says you know him, and you might vouch for him." And he said, "I do know Adam Brown, and I know his character, and I will vouch for him. You treat him like he's my own son. I will sign all the necessary waivers." And that's Adam Brown getting a second chance at life. He went to Buds in Coronado, San Diego. He became the honor recruit of his boot camp. He soared all the way to the top tier of the military, of our special forces. The SEALs a lot of people think of the SEALs as all one unit, but there are SEALs and then there is SEAL Team 6. And Adam made it to that level. And I got to tell you, just so you get a little understanding, when he was a SEAL, he actually got to one point and he got his right eye, his dominant right eye, shot out in a training accident. What did he do? He could have got out of the military right then and there, taken a medical discharge and had a nice pension for the rest of his life, but he stayed in. He wasn't done yet. And he decided that he wanted to keep going, keep pushing. And then he went to sniper school, taught himself to shoot left-handed. Then he was deployed to Afghanistan and had the fingers on his right hand, his dominant right hand, crushed off in a Humvee accident. And I think this is Texas, so there's some people that know how to shoot here, right? If you can imagine teaching yourself, training yourself to shoot pistol left-handed after he had this hand repaired. And he taught himself all of these things, and he succeeded and qualified at the level of SEAL Team 6. It's remarkable. He was the first ever to be even given the opportunity to go do so, and he was given the opportunity because so many people liked him and wanted to give Adam a chance, and also because they said, if anybody can do it, Adam Brown can. Well, when I met the Brown family after Adam had been killed in Afghanistan, they wanted to tell his story, and the name and the title Fearless comes not only from Adam. I have to say that family, the Brown family, and Kelly, who ultimately became his wife, and his kids were fearless. And Adam Brown himself, just the epitome of fearlessness. The most fearless thing he did was on his final written request. He said, "If I'm ever killed, please let people know, let the world know who I was, not as this success, as this SEAL, it's this hero. Let them know who I was before I became a Christian, before I met Kelly." Essentially, he was given the permission to the family to let everybody know the skeletons in his closet, what he had come from, what he had been. And he did that selflessly so he could inspire others to rise above their darkest hour. And the family, when I spoke with them, I knew that there was a dark side to Adam. It wasn't all the hero, the SEAL that everybody had talked about, this guy that would go and always put himself ahead of others and take others in front of himself. And he was a guy who was always volunteering for the tough jobs. And the family said, "Eric, we cannot tell people how high Adam rose unless we show how far he fell." And to me, that was so brave. Anyways, Adam, the story was a gift. It came to me as a gift. And I think a great example of how Adam was not only the the tough, lethal warrior, he could flip this switch and be this tender warrior. He loved bubble baths. He loved Mr. Bubble in particular. One time he came back from a deployment, and about 3 a.m. he was off his sleep cycle, and he heard the front door in his house click open. He was in the middle of a bubble bath. Kelly was sleeping. His kids were sleeping upstairs. And if you can imagine, I just look at it and I'm like, this is a SEAL just back from deployment, SEAL Team 6 from Afghanistan, and you're going to be a home invader? He bolted from that bathtub, according to Kelly, and didn't grab a towel. And there were bubbles flying everywhere, and he chased this guy out of the house like it was, and he is just so like, Kelly thought for sure that he was killing this guy in the living room. But again, I keep saying it, but that's Adam Brown. The family wanted his story told because they thought, like Adam thought, that it could inspire others. And 2 years later, after we've released it, I personally have gotten more than 7,000 letters, emails or letters, to myself or to the attention of the Brown family. And also, the Brown family, they've told me they've gotten thousands themselves. And I thought I could just kind of wrap this up and end it by reading something that was given to me by a young man who took some wrong turns in life, and also made some mistakes, some big mistakes. And now he is trying to go back and getting his high school education or his high school diploma, and he's in an English class. And he wrote an essay, and he wanted to send it to me so I could learn and see where this guy came from. He's from my own hometown. And as I read this story of all these mistakes this young man had made and how he was trying to turn his life around, he wanted to get his high school diploma. And I got to the very last paragraph, and it was just very, very touching. And so I wanted to share it with you because he said, I picked up a book about 6 months ago that I can honestly say changed my life forever. I can also say I met a man about 6 months ago that made me want to be a better person. This book was fearless. That man was Adam Brown. I won't try and describe who he was because that wouldn't be right. But what I can tell you about is the lasting impression he stamped into my life. It's always hard to describe those decisions I made and the path I took. I could never put the right words together to explain to someone why I made so many terrible choices. People just don't get it. There was an inner battle taking place that for some reason God had decided to let rage silently as it twisted and contorted who I was going to become. As I started to hear Adam's story, I began to realize that I wasn't alone. It gave me hope knowing that I hadn't gone to a point of no return. I think most importantly for me is that he gave me inspiration. While I was reading Fearless, I was almost looking at a reflection of myself. In no way am I trying to compare myself to Adam, by the way, but I can honestly say that I had felt what he felt. He had lived and contributed to that same battle that I had been fighting. It brought calmness, it humbled me, knowing that a human being of that caliber had slipped once where I had, where many do, then picked himself back up beyond expectation and made his life count. I still have a lot of work to do, but I find it strange that I picked up this book when I did. Like I mentioned, my life has arrived at a crossroad. The deepest rooted goal I have ever made is what I have now, and that is to become a SEAL. Respectively, only if I prove myself good enough. But it's something that I think about constantly. When things start to suck, with work, with life, with everything, I turn it into motivation. Then when I do, I resort back to the idea that there's a starting point and an ending point. I think about where Adam came from and where he went, how he lived his life and to what degree, where I want to go and who I want to become while getting there. Like in Fearless, I'm standing in a recruiting office somewhere, like Adam. I've arrived with baggage, and also like Adam, I am ready to make that baggage count for something. I have a tattoo on the inside of my right arm. It's in the shape of a shield, fear inscribed on the left side, less inscribed on the right. In one half, there's a Spartan helmet. This is for my father. In the other half, the initials, AB. When people ask, what's the significance? I tell them, it gives me inspiration. Then they ask who AB is, and I tell them, go read Fearless. So it's the magic of books that have inspired me in the past and my entire life, and these letters that bring solace to the Brown family. And I have to say, we have a special guest tonight. Kelly Brown, Adam's widow, is here with us, and that letter was for her.